in one of his many, many meetings that he has here every year rather, a young lady asked Mr. Galloway a question. And the question was this: do you allow women to stand for elections? What do you think about women standing for elections? What do you think about women campaigning? And George very rightly said, why should we exclude half of our community? Our sisters, our mothers, our daughters, our wives, they are half. Why cut off one arm and then work with just one arm when we can have both arms? And that was a very encouraging thing for him to say to women. And with that kind of attitude, we have always pushed for women to come forward, for women to be an equal part of political activity in Bradford, which is again something which the Labour Party nominally might have paid lip service to, but they haven't actually worked, in Bradford I'm talking about, haven't actually worked to fulfil that. We wanted to attract those people who were previously neglected by the other main parties, which were mostly youth and women. As I said, they normally targeted the elderly because they held a certain amount of power within the brotherly system. And that's one of the things we wanted to break, the brotherly system. And often I am part of that brotherly. But why should one brotherly, like a mafia clan or a mafia family, have monopoly over the local politics in the city where there's multiculturalism, where there are people from every background, every country, every colour, every caste and creed? Why should we divide our community into these little pockets when we are all together as Bradfordians, when we're all here, British, living in Britain? And the way forward is for us all to come together. Youngsters, women, old, young, black, white, everybody coming together and saying, we're all Bradfordians. Let's united, collectively think what's best for us all, rather than just one section of the community.
Now, you took on brotherlyism. For those of our viewers...
I took brotherlyism from my very first election because I was part of the Labour Party. I saw how the selection procedures occurred, and it wasn't very democratic.
Okay.
So I've been fighting that a long time, and eventually it's...
Okay, well, let's see if we can get people to ring in with their thoughts about that. 01254277370. Are you, or have been, have an opinion, if you like, about the issue of brotherlyism? What is brotherlyism, for those that you don't know? Clan politics. So the head of that particular family decides that they're going to vote for a particular party, and then all that family block vote goes to that person. You've kind of used the brotherlyism thing to your advantage, but yet are you engaged in it as well? At such a level of Bradford?
I have never been involved with brotherlyism. In fact, I'll tell you a little story. When I was studying sociology, I was probably one of the few lads in the class. And I was the only guy who in the class stood up for women's rights. And the lads used to laugh at me. They said, women's rights equal to us? I was the only person who spoke against the caste system during my studies in sociology. And I couldn't understand why one person or one caste was above any other. And one of the lads in my class stood up and he said, oh, you know, such and such people are lower than us because they've always been lower than us. And we got into a bit of an argument. So I've been a bit of a rebel ever since I was at school, I'm afraid. And I cannot understand why one section of the community thinks they have a God-given right to rule over everybody else. The brotherly system is never going to go away. It's a good thing, but only if it's used as a social thing within the community to support each other. Now, when it comes to politics...
So are you saying to me, in this whole election campaign, in 3 weeks, you did not use the issue of brotherlyism at all?
Well, let me put it
You didn't reach out. You had a women's strategy to reach out to women voters. Wasn't that based on...
Well, that's not brotherly, is it? That's women. That's half the community.
Yeah, but that was a sexist campaign then, wasn't it?
No, we approached women as well as men. Normally, you just approach the men. What we said, we create equality. We approached women as well. I mean, why should we take them for granted? Why should women think, well, my husband or my father or my son is going to decide on my behalf, when women are going to be living in the same community? If my daughter goes to a school, then your daughter is going to the same school. If my daughter's failing, then your daughter's failing because of the way the school is run. It doesn't matter whether your brotherly is better than my brotherly.
But you've now, I mean, let's just kind of widen this out. You're now at the stage where you're putting up 12 candidates?
12, yes.
12 local council candidates in the Bradford district.
We call them the Magnificent 12.
Magnificent 12. And what's your sense about how can you keep this momentum going? Because it's been nearly 4 weeks. It'll be 4 weeks later on the end of this week since you won that victory.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll be able to maintain that into next week, local elections, and win some of those?
You say 4 weeks, but it's 6 weeks from the beginning of when Mr. Galloway announced he would be standing. So it's been a roller coaster ride, and so far it's been an uphill ride. But the momentum is there. Now, coming back to the brotherly system, I'll tell you one thing. I have a very, very large family in Bradford, and I think most people in Bradford will.
As I do as well, yeah.
Of course you do, yes.
Yeah.
I never approached one member of my family, or my so-called bradri, and asked them to vote for me. I've always said to them, if you think I deserve your vote, or if you think my party deserves your vote, then vote for us. Yeah. Well, that doesn't mean nothing.
I'm from your family, I'm from your background, I'm from your family, please vote for me. That's brotherlyism, isn't it?
Yes, and that's what...
have you never done that?
I've never done that, and I've actually actively worked against that, because I'll tell you why. There are councillors in all the parties in Bradford who can't even speak a decent paragraph in English. They don't have that command of the English language. They went to their brotherly and said, look, your uncle and my uncle were friends back in Pakistan. So, you owe me your votes. And people voted because they were related or known amongst their families. No one ever asked anybody, what are you going to do about the failing schools in Bradford? What are you going to do about the health system in Bradford? How are you going to bring the communities together? What about the hole in the city that we've got, the Westfield site? What about the Odeon? There are lists as long as your arm that we have problems about in Bradford. But yet the ruling class in Bradford seem to think it's too comfortable, we'll stay where we are, we don't want to make changes. And it needed somebody from outside, like Mr. Galloway, to come in, make an assessment and think, right, that's where the problem is. That's where the problem is.
OK, let's get back to those local elections. You've got 12 candidates up. Yeah. How many seats are you expecting to win? Let's be honest.
We're expecting to win...
Friend to friend.
Friend to friend.
Just ignore our viewers.
There's nobody there, I'm sure. But we're going to go and try and win every last one of them. We don't do things because we don't want to win. We want to put our case across. Win, lose or draw is another thing. And it's not always about winning. Yeah. I lost the last election, and I lost the local election last time, because there was only 5 or 6 people in the Respect Party in Bradford, and we had, yes, supporters, but the core group here was only a small group. But yet, we laid the foundations. We got the brand name across. We got our policies known in Bradford. And I think anywhere in Bradford, not just in West Bradford, but everywhere in Bradford, if you mention the name Respect, everybody knows what you're talking about. So the brand name was known, the groundwork was done, and now we have to work even harder and get our councillors elected in council chambers.
And if you fail to win any of those seats, is that the end?
If at first you don't succeed, you try again, and then you try again.
But if you can't win... Yeah.
Like I said, it's
not about... If you can't win in the aftermath of such a sensational result, then there's no hope that you're actually going to carry that through into next year, the year after, or the year after.
I understand your point, but the people of Bradford now realise that Respect is a viable alternative. We don't have to be slaves to Labour or Tory or Lib Dem. And as you've seen during the election campaign in Bradford, people from the Labour Party have left and joined us. People from the Tories have left and joined us. People from the Lib Dems have left and joined us.
Is that opportunism? Because that's what it is. They suddenly see that Respect Party's on the up and they just start jumping from the other ships.
Of course there's going to be an element of jumping onto the bandwagon, and we always expect that. But not all the people who are with us are like that. We know people in Bradford, we know who's what and who's like what. What we've done during our selection process is Mr. Galloway, Salma Yaqub, myself and several other colleagues stayed up 2 or 3 nights and days and went through 350 applications from people who wanted to stand for Respect in Bradford, and there were only 30 wards available. So our selection process was there. Only within just a few days, obviously, we had to do that. We got 12 people selected, the best people that we thought. We're not saying that we're perfect. We've got everybody perfect for their ward. We may have made hasty decisions based on the little time that we had. But we're not going to give up. Win, lose or draw, it's the fight that counts.
It's the fight that counts. And so if you're in Bradford West and you want to share your thoughts, 01254 277 370. We're on Twitter, mshafiq UK, and on the official Ummah channel page on Facebook. So if you want to join us by those various methods, and you've got the laptop here so we can keep in communication with you, please do join us about that. Now, George Galloway has admitted that he wasn't really a good MP in Parliament in terms of attendance and in terms of votes. And he's promised to do differently in the House magazine interview that he did last week. How are you going to maintain that momentum so that George Galloway takes Bradford a lot more seriously than some say he took Bethnal Green and Bow?
Well, the thing with Mr. Galloway is that he's a very principled man. He will not go into Parliament and vote for something that he doesn't believe in. He'd rather not, vote for something that he doesn't believe in. Now, there is criticism, was criticism about him that he attended Parliament rather less than he should have done. But what was he doing during those times? And people bring up this Big Brother thing, but that was recess. That was a holiday. You can do what you want during your holiday. But what was he doing most of the time? He was still working. He's probably one of the few MPs who run up and down the country tirelessly every day, speaking in public meetings. He's on TV like yourself, standing up for the things he believes in. He's on the radio on Talk Sport, discussing the very issues that affect our lives. He's on, is a column. He writes a column for newspapers as well. In every way he can, he's trying to do what he, work for what he believes in. Now, you can't just sit in Parliament and think everything is going to be dealt with there. People who haven't travelled around the country, not just here but internationally as well. I mean, he's been to all these countries, Afghanistan, fighting against the war there. He fought against the war in Iraq. He stood with the people of Kashmir for Pakistan.
Let me pause. Let's pause. Let's go to Bradford and talk to Ayub. Assalamu alaikum, Ayub.
Wa alaikum salam, Shafiq.
How are you, sir?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very good. What would you like to say?
I'd just like to... I'm not sure what the discussion is because I've just...
We're just kind of talking about Bradford West, the aftermath, the local elections, respect, Arshad Ali's role in that.
Could I just go for a slight tangent?
You certainly can, yeah.
Because, Shafiq, you're from the Blackburn area, aren't you?
I'm not, actually, no. I'm a refugee here, just on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Right, okay, so you're okay. Maybe my question was going to be, if you were from the Blackburn area, is what is the feeling? Because I know Ummah is situated in Blackburn. What is the feeling of people in Blackburn for potential respect candidate to come into that area? Should Jack Straw, for whatever reason, have to step down?
Well, let's just enlighten our viewers. Jack Straw has been served papers by a Libyan general who's part of the Libyan National Council now, saying that he was complicit in torture that he was subjected to by the Libyans, and he was given a tip-off to the Libyans by MI6, and it was signed off by a senior minister. There's reports in the Sunday Times as well that Jack Straw was indeed the minister that signed off that for MI6. Jack Straw denies that. We have tried to get Jack Straw on TV, but he's not released any statement and says he's going to robustly defend his position in court. So there's a potential that if Jack Straw was dragged into that he may have to resign his parliamentary seat. Is that what you're referring to?
That's exactly what I'm referring to. I think it'd be interesting to see the views and test the Galloway magic outside Bradford West to see if respect has any attraction outside the area.
Okay, and let's ask our people, let's ask our viewers in Blackburn, if you live in Blackburn, what do you think about respect putting up candidates in your area and potentially put somebody up against the next parliamentary election, whether it's a by-election or a main election?
So, thank you for that. I apologise if I've taken your strength away into a slightly different direction, but I think it's quite a pertinent question in view of the political climate that's ongoing at the moment. I think it's an interesting insight into how people who have so far been on the outskirts watching all the activity, all the fantastic activity that's been happening in Bradford. Yeah. And Brother Arshad I know him well. I wonder if he recognises my voice.